everybody. Welcome to Fun. Welcome back. It's Dan. It's your Chuckle King. Here once again with another fantastic podcast. I'm loving it. I'm having such a great time doing these. I love that I get to essentially have a good reason to talk to my friends about business. And so these are super fun. Nathan.
Hello,
sir.
Daniel.
As always, I'm joined by Nathan, the podcast producing the Chuckle Wizard, if you will.
Yes. I craft said chuckles in your chuckles. I craft your chuckles into deplorable, not deplorable, not that kind of content. We don't do that. Deployable is what I was looking for. Media.
Deployable.
So, yeah. We're a couple deployables here. A basket of them. Dan, I wanted to give you an opportunity, though. I think you're really excited about the guest. And I would like you to pay me $200, and we can just skip the intro here with me and get right into the attraction of the guest.
Nathan, are you trying to monetize skipping the intro?
I think that it would behoove you.
By the way, don't give Disney any ideas.
Look,
for me to have to pay extra to press that button on Disney Plus to skip the intro.
Time is so precious. And your day, I mean, you could be doing so much else. The magic in the world is out there. And why would you spend it talking to me when you can just pay me $200?
When you could skip what I could pay to skip the line.
Yes, right. Of course. Absolutely.
Well, I have the perfect guest to help you figure out whether he wanted to or not, whether intentional or not, he has now become synonymous with the idea of Fastpass. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Kevin Perjurer from Defunctland. Hey, Kev, how's it going, man?
Hi.
It's a pleasure to have you.
I get it. Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not. I was like, what? And then you're okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of dad jokes going on here, Kev. I'm sorry. We're real corny.
I thought you were just bombing. And then I was like, what is this riff? And then you're like, Fastpass, and I put it together, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You see.
Did you ever know that you would be just like the guy who wrote the Disney Channel jingle? Did you ever think that you would be known as the king of Fastpass?
No. Well, yeah, I mean, I knew I'd be the person that knew the most about it forever.
Yeah, you certainly will be. Every time anyone talks about it, ever, they're just like, yeah, but have you seen the Defunctland documentary? It's crazy. It's just bananas. And what's even crazier is it's 3 years old. Happy anniversary to the Fastpass doc. It came out literally when this episode comes out, like in late November. It'll be 3 years. What do you think about it now that it's 3 years old?
I mean, it's probably still one of my favorite things that I've made. It's just such a good story. And, I can't take credit for the way history happened, but it's just the best. It's just the perfect story.
It really is. And it's something that secretly influences the entirety of theme parks now. Not so secretly. It used to be secret. Now it's more blatant than ever. And the way you kind of peel back the story, it's just bananas that Fastpass eventually became this big monster that was just destroying the parks and where we are now. What do you think? Have we come full circle now, Kev, with multipass? Everyone's like, well, now Fastpass is back with multipass. Are we just in this forever cycle now with the parks, and we'll just eventually go back to GD Plus in 4 years?
No, I think it's pretty linear in the way they're trying to transition away from Fastpass, and I think eventually individual Lightning Lane. Maybe not individual Lightning Lane, but you can still do the current Lightning Lane, right? Is it there's multipass, and there's what's the other one?
Lightning Lane Premier Pass.
Yeah,
the mini VIP pass.
Here we got the deets here.
I imagine this is just a slow build into doing what Universal's been doing, and then they'll add
with
it
their
to
Express Pass.
Right, and then they'll probably copy what Universal's been doing, and by making it a perk of the deluxe hotels if they needed to.
Right,
to
exactly.
Boost, not a perk, especially with club level hotels. I imagine that they're just going to continue to like everything they've done is getting them closer to Universal's model.
Right, because it's not a bad model, ultimately, the way that they have it put together.
Well, it's way less disruptive at Universal because it's so exclusive, and because everyone is faced with that, with that price. When Disneyland Paris has exactly what Walt Disney World has now, and they've had it for a while. Well, maybe not exactly. No, actually, that's not true. Sorry. Disneyland Paris has a dual system where every single attraction is individual, which is, I think, is the best system, where you can buy a Fastpass for every individual attraction, or you can buy a Fastpass for you get to ride every attraction once, and it's something like every individual attraction added together like minus 10%. So it's like you save a little bit by bundling them all, but I think that's the best system, because I mean, all these systems are terrible, but I mean, because
let's be clear.
I don't know. The reason I made Fastpass, one of the reasons, is because everyone spoke with such authority online, and this is completely forgotten now because everyone just links.
Because you corrected it, you literally corrected it.
I mean, because everyone spoke with such authority, and I was even wrong. I was even wrong to a certain extent while researching it, and I had to go through the process of accepting the fact that my initial thing was wrong. But everyone spoke with such authority about it helps weights, it doesn't help weights, it doesn't have any effect on weights, it's actually better, it's worse, and everyone was just talking completely out of their ass, or sorry, I don't know if you,
you can say ass.
Podcast.
It's okay.
They're fast ass,
which is what people do.
The fast ass,
which is what people do online, and I think it was one of those things where it's kind of like people were talking about it the same way they talk about Walt Disney's intentions, because I talk about that all the time, but you can never prove or disprove what he ever thought or believed, because he's dead and also a liar.
Yes, the biggest revisionist ever. His stories changed every time he told it.
Exactly. So you can do that and just have fun with it, or build an argument around it. But the thing that bothered me, seeing people online talk about this, I'm like, this is actually math. This isn't an opinion or an origin story or anything else. This is legitimately something you can calculate. And it started from there. And the thing that I was wrong about was I thought that Fastpass in general just caused more weights. And that's not true. Fastpass actually reduces weights when implemented in its original vision. And I found that out talking to the inventor of Fastpass during the research phase of that project. And I showed him the video a few times, and he kind of explained some things, and I did and looked at the math, and there was this scenario in the early 2000s where Fastpass worked and actually did theoretically reduced weights, distributed people throughout the park. It's not just reducing weight. That is the wrong way to put it. It's about spreading people out and increasing the average amount of attractions experienced per person.
Right.
And that
you can push people into different parts of the park and kind of manage crowds with Fastpass systems in a way that Genie Plus, I think, flips it. Because your Genie Plus makes you zigzag around the park constantly, so it feels like you're always just but with Fastpass you could literally plan I'm going to be over here for a chunk of time, or I want to go over here. You could run and put your tickets in, grab your things. It was a really nice system until it slowly became monetized, I guess.
Well, there were a lot of downsides with it. The fact that you would have to double back multiple times to go get a Fastpass physically. And there were benefits to that, too, because it meant you were in the park, and you were provably in the park if you went to an attraction. And I talked about this in the video, obviously.
You know what? That's fair. There's a little bit of that now, where it's just hey, you got to show up. It's if we gave out strikes for Genie Plus or Lightning Lane Multipass or whatever, we gave out strikes like that, like they gave to annual pass holders, people would lose their Fastpass privileges left and right. Yeah.
The hardest thing for me was to get over the idea that the biggest thing that while talking and researching for it, that was the biggest thing is it's the line that you stand in is not the line for the attraction. The original Fastpass, the line for the attraction was Fastpass. The standby line was truly a standby line, and people say that now, but what it means is think about it like an airplane. The standby line is not guaranteed a ride. The reservations are the primary way of getting on the airplane.
Yes,
Standby,
yeah.
and so to flip that in my mind, it does not apply to any form of monetization, and it does not apply to Fastpass Plus, because you had to be in the park, and in Fastpass Plus, you could book 60 days, 30 days in advance, something like that.
And if you were staying DVC or on property, it was 90 days. It became
right,
crazy.
and so it doesn't. That's completely irrelevant to it. It completely destroys that idea. But the idea that like the original paper Fastpass was the day starts and you start to just take your spot in that line, and you have a physical evidence of your spot in that line. And if those spots in line run out, you can stand and wait for a gap in that line, and they'll let you on. And that is completely different than what is understood, and it's very hard for people to understand and like comprehend. It's hard for me to even get it because it's so
I think the airplane analogy is
present.
really, especially airplanes these days, like especially how everything is reserved, everything's upgraded, everything is, airplanes are a great analogy, I think, to how it's
because if you're standby on an airplane and you don't get on the airplane, you expect that. But that's not really the case with Disney parks, especially because immediately after Fastpass was invented and the person that invented it retired like the same year, it made
so long, and thanks for all the fish.
Yeah, I mean, it was what a legend. Actually a legend. Well, I mean, he has a Main Street window, but I don't know if he's a Disney legend. But
I think that's a better reward than getting whatever dumb thing you get when you become a Disney legend. It's not even like they give you like a handprint at Hollywood Studios or like a star somewhere. It's just like an award, and you're like on a website, and that's it. Like at the very least, I would prefer my name to be written on a window somewhere in the park.
Yeah, better than being John Stamos doesn't have a window in the park.
Sure doesn't. He
has a window from the park at his house.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have a window in the park. Anyways,
Patrick Dougal stole for him. What is his name? Patrick Dougal or whatever. Anyway.
But yeah, it's trying to find. So yeah, but Fastpass now, it became. And I should say that like the original Fastpass. I talk about this in the video, but it's so much easier to say it in conversation than having to animate it.
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah,
it was never, and it's like Fastpass would have never stood up, even the original, the better version, the perfect version that wasn't attached to Pirates and Haunted Mansion and was literally just for e-tickets. That idea still would not have stood up to the 2019 crowds that exponentially increased. Like the moment that you have a system where you can skip the line in a park that's already at 100% capacity, it's completely an irrelevant system, and it needs to be abolished.
Right.
And so, but obviously, so then they just started paying for it, which it's like, yeah, it used to be free. It's so hard. Everyone's like, man, we should go back to Fastpass Plus. And it's like, no. And it's like, well, we should go back to OG Fastpass. And it's like, also, no, not with these crowds, because there's no walk-on attractions, really. I mean, there may be a few. Like,
even the People Mover, by and large, ends up with like a 15-minute wait because like the queue is built into the sidewalk downstairs, and the attraction never accounted for people to pile up and want to ride this damn thing. And of course, they've had to have turned the speed down on it over time. Like it has to go slower now because it's just older. But it's just those things that like Carousel of Progress even ends up with like a big chunk of people waiting outside it consistently, when it should just be sucking in humans every time the doors open. And so
those two attractions are the only examples, and they're right next to each other. The rest of the park doesn't have anything like that. I mean,
no, you're so right.
Winnie the Pooh has a 40-minute wait. Like
even the Liberty Bell, the boat itself, I think is maybe another example where people, and Tom Sawyer's Island, way less people use that island than anyone thinks.
What is that?
Yeah. What is Tom Sawyer?
Do you mean Cars Off-Road Racers?
Yeah. Did you see the tweet the other day where someone's like, oh, here's video of them testing the cars on dirt tracks. I can't imagine dirt tracks in Magic Kingdom. Could you imagine the dust clouds that'll cause? Be like, bro.
You should pray for the dust to reflect some of the sun's particles off that hot cement of that park.
Yeah, right.
They're going to start blowing dust into the air just to make sure you can go in August.
Right. Pray for that sweet relief.
Yeah, of just smog. Yeah, I don't know that whole. It's funny that It's that yes, well that comment is funny, but I also saw the video of that. And I'm sure it's genius and unlike anything I've ever seen, whatever. But it's also funny because it's not like you pointed out that Kilimanjaro Safaris already does this.
Yeah.
Tomorrowland's,
All the elephant tusk scratches. I have terrible news for anyone who thinks that an elephant has just passed by and scratched at the walls.
Well,
you know
as we
what I mean?
do-
Well, how
Dan,
do they
as
get
we-
the ostrich to lay that egg perfectly every time?
I mean,
Oh my
don't you love
gosh.
how there's a termite infestation on an attraction?
Yeah,
and
right,
they
right,
just
right.
allow it
Yeah.
to happen. Yeah,
They just allow it to happen.
Yep, not a problem.
I got my girlfriend an annual pass. We like picked up an annual pass for her, and so we ended up going multiple times because I'm always down, working. And so I remember the look in her eyes when like we rode Safari like 4 to 5 months after, on a subsequent trip, and I'm like, hey. Wow, those ostrich eggs haven't moved, have they? And she just like looked at me and she's like, they're not real, are they? I'm like, no, they're not. But so many, but yeah, it's that, oh my gosh. Hey, speaking of Animal Kingdom, I have to ask, Kev, because when you were making this video, in no way, shape, or form were you like, oh, and by the way, I'm baking in this crazy twist. You the entire time you were making the video, you're like, God, I'm pounding out all the mathematics. I'm running all the simulations. You were so focused on like making sure the math was right and that everything was right that you're just like, no, the Shapeland is Animal Kingdom. I just had to make you think differently for a second. It wasn't supposed to be some M. Night Shyamalan grand reveal, but it became this icon. It became this like
It was
became this thing.
supposed to be a twist. That's why there's a big music cue and my voice
Sure.
gets all dramatic.
But
it
like
wasn't- it
that's
wasn't-
all anyone talks about now. they learned nothing other than Shapeland was Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I appreciate the support of it. I don't see it as a twist in the way that people talk about it because it's like set up at minute like 50 and paid off at minute 65.
yeah.
Which is not really
It's exactly how M. Night does it.
Right,
the
exactly,
aliens
yeah.
don't show up until
Bruce Willis doesn't actually show up in The Sixth Sense until minute 65.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
by
And then he
by-
finds out he's dead in minute 75.
70, yeah. It's huge. I couldn't believe it. First he shows up, and then he's the ghost.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was in the movie.
It was like me watching Interstellar when Matt Damon showed up. I said, "What a twist!"
What a twist.
Matt Damon's in this movie. But yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be a twist. I did not know it would be such a big thing. It's like an irreplicable kind of thing because I just wish that it's such a goofy, Shapeland is such a goofy, fun thing, and it's so stupid on purpose that it's like genius accidentally because it's just the funniest, dumbest thing of like ride the triangle, just trying to make it as simple as possible for people to understand. But
Right.
it also had the side effect of like creating a primary source of media within the documentary, which is like, that's cool because it's like I own Shapeland in a way that I don't own. The most documentarians don't own anything in any of their works, so it's cool to have that. But also, I have considered trying to artificially manufacture another one, and it's just the most cringe thing you could possibly think of like trying to come up with something else original. It
Right.
only worked in that scenario. Yeah, I'll never make anything better than that. So.
Everyone's going to say that the Defunctland peaked at Numbers Land. Yeah, I don't know about Numbers Land.
Not Numbers Land, Animal Land. Animal Land was actually Animal Kingdom. That one was more of an
What a
obvious
twist.
We saw
What a
that one
twist.
coming.
Yeah.
We saw that one coming. It's essentially the trajectory of M. Night Shyamalan's career, if you think about it. If you rely on needing to twist every time you make a piece of content, you're eventually going to run out of anything meaningful to do with the plot.
But I would love to see. I would love to see
I
Josh
did have a
Hartnett
twist
in
in
some
the next
Defunctland
one.
videos. So there's a
You know
twist.
what?
Oh, I
There's
said
a twist. There was a twist in the following year's video in Disney
What?
Channel. God.
Was it a twist? It was a grand reveal. I thought.
It was a twist. The music
I thought it was an aha. I thought it was like a house aha moment.
No. I mean,
No?
sure, it's a reveal, but so is, I guess.
So is Shapeland as Animal Kingdom.
So is Shapeland. Yeah, it's
Right.
like a twist and a reveal are pretty much interchangeable to a certain extent. But like, I guess a twist is I told you one thing and then it turned out to be another, and I suppose I did not tell you in either case. I guess Shapeland's more of a twist because I just said it was Shapeland, but I didn't say like Shapeland is nothing else. Don't think about it. Or like this is what it is. And then I'm like, I was joking, or I was yeah. I really pulled the wool over your eyes. It's so stupid.
Kevin, do you have like a specific celebrity or somebody that came out of the woodwork and promoted the Fastpass documentary that you were like, I was not expecting that connection? Or
oh yeah, people must have been tweeting about left and right. Who is the weirdest person who was like, oh yeah, did you know about Fastpass facts?
No, I don't think I mean, no one that isn't already watching Defunctland. I don't know. I don't know. Fastpass,
I assume
not
Ben
so much.
Schwartz goes off about it or something like that.
I've never seen Ben Schwartz talk about it.
I remember they talked about it on Good Mythical Morning on their podcast. That was fun. I was like,
that was years before that though. They didn't talk about Fastpass, did they?
Oh, wasn't it? I thought it was. They were talking about Fastpass.
Rhett and Link mentioned Defunctland like once in like 2019, and it was the funniest thing to get because everyone started tagging me. Rhett and Link just talked about your channel, and I was like, cool. And so I went and looked at it, and it was like them being like, so a lot of people have told us to watch a channel called Defunctland, and yeah, it looks like I watched some of video. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I saw that, and we also, and that was it.
Yeah, they breezed over it so quickly. Yeah,
it was like in a series of like channels that people had recommended they check out. So I mean, it was still cool, but it was not like they were like, you gotta watch this. I think my favorite celebrity interaction is that I've had, and I really don't have that many, but is after Disney Channel. Spencer Breslin tweeted about being in it because I used clips of him from the PSAs he shot when he was like 11, I ragged on him. I ragged on those commercials pretty hard, and he just had like the most stellar response. And I guess I don't know if he's doing much acting anymore, but I think his sister is
Abigail
Breslin. Yeah,
mm-hmm. She's still acting.
But that was probably my favorite. But it's funny because with Defunctland or with anything online, I have enough people that watch my videos, where it's not necessarily like celebrities that will watch them, but celebrities to me will watch them because I'll spend a year researching this and I'll find like a clip of some kid, like for Kid Cities, for instance. Oh, no, it wasn't Kid Cities. It was American Idol, the experience that I did earlier this year. Like there was this kid that was like winning the golden ticket at Disney Hollywood Studios was the best experience of my life. And then that person commented on the video and then when it was like, it is no longer the best moment of my life. and so like that's the best because inevitably, like if I find something in a newspaper or in an old book or something, I put it and millions of people see it, they will come forward. And like even like I showed videos of like I'll show photos that somebody sent in because like with American Idol and Kids Cities, those videos are kind of this new form of documentary that I've been doing, which is much more true documentary than like what I'm working on right now, which is I have to use old behind the scenes Disney stuff, which is just like inevitable.
Right.
But with Kid Cities and American Idol, so many people experience those attractions and then those places that I had them send in photos, and so it's like these photos that have been in closets and in drawers are actually being seen for the first time, and it feels much more like true archive work, and so those are exciting. But what's funny about doing that is you'll inevitably post a photo that Jeff sent in 30 years ago when he was in 5th grade. And that photo will be of Jeff at a table with 3 other kids, and all 3 kids somehow independently will be like, "Where did you get this photo of me? How am I in this video?" and so it's just like how is that possible? So
yeah, I love that. That happens to me every once in a while. I remember I made the Peter Pan video, and I talked about Peter Pan at Disneyland in 1961, and it was like this like spry young blonde woman, and she watched the video and she's like, I can't believe I would find myself in a documentary about Peter Pan costumes. It's like, dang, that's so cool. It's so great talking to ex-cast members but also the novelty of just randomly finding yourself in a Defunctland episode.
People will email me and I'm so bad at responding to these types of emails because I don't even know. But like,
what do you say?
Like, I sometimes don't respond because I'm just busy and I get a lot of emails. But like, they'll just be like, "Where did you find this? Like, that's so cool. Are there more photos and videos of this?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah, no. I looked for 7 months to find this one photo. It is the only one that exists. I'm subscribed to 15 archive services, and it's the only evidence I could find that this thing happened.
and they just happen to be in it. But but I just want to, I think some people, and they're very nice, and I don't mean to make this sound like snippy, but it's like, oh yeah, here's a folder of every photo of you that I have. I'll just send it to them. It's like 65 photos of them as a kid.
Let me just bring out my Brian.
I just had to find.
You said your name was Brian James. Did you grow up on Woodward or did you grow up on 6th Street? Oh, Woodward. Oh yeah, here you go. And it's just
here's 17 more pictures of you.
Yeah, here's 17 pictures of you. Here's one from your birthday
your ancestry.com.
Yeah. Is this your 5th or 6th birthday party? I actually was going to reach out to you.
I was just thinking about that.
It's like, no, you just happen to be in the background of an American Idol experience video one time, but I appreciate that was also fun. American Idol experience. This is actually more reasonable to ask where I found it, and I feel like I did respond to a few people, but like, because there was always 3 contestants, all these people that went up for American Idol, which is why I had sometimes I get worried about showing people, the contemporary people, especially young people, like in videos, so I'll sometimes obscure them, especially young children that are still presumably children. If it's like 50 years ago, it's like whatever. But if it's like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it's like, okay. And they're like 8 and they're now like 16.
It is so weird how I also think the same way. Like old pictures of kids, whatever.
Those are adults.
Those are adults now.
But I mean, like if the photo's like less than 10 years old and the kid is less than 10 years old, I'm like, ugh, should I show this? You're still, you're not like an adult yet. But I had no problem doing that, and because they were at least 16, 14, with the American Idol contestants, because these people wanted to be on stage and begged to be on stage. And so, and because of that, they all, like American Idol, that video that I did was just every channel was like someone that wanted to be a singer. And so like their YouTube channel, especially early YouTube, Bieber era YouTube, was just them singing. So like it'd be like 2 videos of them performing an American Idol experience, and then like a cover of like John Lennon's Imagine, a cover of like Walking on Sunshine ukulele version. Like every channel was like the exact same. It would be like American Idol experience July 2014, and then cover of of some a Bruno Mars And it's so whenever I find one of those people, whenever I showed a video, like someone would send it in, I'm like, I'm not going to blur everybody in this. And that's when I just got so many people that were like, I'm also in this footage. That was my performance of American Idol. Where did you get this? And I was like, I don't know. Someone sent it to me. But
chill, bro.
But obviously they're so excited, and I'm so burnt out on the topic by that point because it's already been released. And so I obviously don't respond with like, shut up. Stop asking me about this video. I try to be nice when I respond.
You just have ChatGPT respond now. Just be like, please just copy and paste the email. Yeah, that's awful. That's the future, though. I feel like whenever you mail your senators, ChatGPT is going to answer.
Buddy, so that's already. They don't need ChatGPT. It's one big form.
Yeah, that's true.
Citizen, thank you for.
Now, you mentioned it, Kev, and I want to ask, what's your next video about? Because I know, but I want to talk to you about it. If you're okay talking about it.
Sure. It won't be out by the time this is out, but it might never be out if I die from trying to make it. So
I just said that was a little preview into my life with Kevin. Every time I'm like, hey man, how's the new video going? Oh, it's gonna kill me. It's the death of me. It's gonna put me in my grave.
I say that every time. It's gonna be the death of me. Yeah, so this is actually a 2-part series on animatronics and living characters. So the first part is called Disney's Animatronics: A Living History, and it's like 90 minutes, and it's on everything that it's about all the animatronics that were made prior to the implementation of the computer. And so that includes pretty much everything right up to Haunted Mansion. So Lincoln, Small World, Tiki Room, and then everything, and then I go back and talk about automatons and just just a lot of. It's a creepy video.
Oh,
Like
I bet it's going to be super creepy. So you're really going to break down like the history of animatronics, and not in a way that's just like, oh, well, they invented Abraham Lincoln. No, we're going back further than that. We are going to kind of like set up where we got this idea from.
It goes back to 2000 BC in ancient Egypt and talks about those. And I mean, and the first 20 minutes, if it's still going to be this, is just, it doesn't have anything to do with Disney. It's just about all how these robots were built and how they worked, because it is relevant to how Disney started.
Walt was so like obsessed with them, right? Like which one did he see? He got like exposed to one early on.
It was a bird in New Orleans. It was an automaton bird. There were a lot of automaton birds. So there were like two class of automatons, and this is in the video, but there were two class of automatons. There was like specially made, brilliant, like pieces of like machinery that were like probably unreplicable, like that did insane things you can never imagine that something without electricity could do.
That's such a great way to put it. Yeah, I've seen a cup and balls one. I think once it was like,
that's nothing. There's ones that can write words, and there's ones that can play music, but not just piano music. They can play the flute, and so there's all these things that have been going on.
Lizzo.
Yes.
Yes. She's the only flautist that I'm aware of. So
yes, like Lizzo. And so then the other type were these kind of manufactured ones that were still like wealthy luxury items, but were more like mass produced. And those were the ones that Walt found like one of the birds. And the whistle, I don't talk about in the video. I might, but probably shouldn't because it's already so long. Is that like the whistle, because there was no electricity. It was wind up, which meant weights and tension and cams and levers. But the whistle was created by like a needle on like a metal surface that would like go back and forth and go like. And it's like, because it still made noise, but like birds were the easiest to do anything with because they're like, they look like little robots. That's why people think they're robots today, because they act like little robots.
Do they? Oh wait, is that like a thing that birds are robots?
Yeah. It's like pigeons are like government surveillance robots.
Are these people who also believe in Sasquatch like legitimately or just passively?
Like, a lot of people believe in Sasquatch legitimately.
Yeah. What do you mean passive?
That's not like a ridiculous.
Well, there's like people who believe in Sasquatch that are also fans of like, Ghostbusters movies, and they're like, they get it. They get that like it's like kind of like, a fictional fantasy.
You're talking
cryptozoology.
Cryptozoology, yeah.
Right. They're aware. They know they're more interested in like the idea,
the myth over the reality,
than actually thinking that there is a missing link roaming around Tennessee or whatever. Where do you stand, Kevin? Do you believe in Sasquatch?
No. Of course not. Why would I believe in that?
Where do you draw a line? Aliens? Do you think aliens are real?
Yes.
Ghosts?
But I mean, ghosts? No.
Loch Ness Monster?
Well, I mean, it's like all of these things, for the record, all of these things, I'm not going to admit, like all of these things have like some truth to them, like aliens. Yes, life outside of Earth. I'm certain that probably maybe. Yeah. And then, but like us, I don't know. And then like ghosts, like a Victorian child, like in the hallway. No. Would I say that like all spirituality is a myth perpetrated by by wealth hoarders to keep the masses like in line? No, I'm not that cynical. I mean, like maybe there is something. Like I'm not like, no way. Like, I'm not like one of those people, but like ghosts as in like EKG kind of thing. Like, no. Like, I don't.
Like Ghostbusters, like Slimer eating hot dogs.
No. Yeah, Slimer's not real. Anything that can be like measured.
Slimer's not real.
Yeah, Slimer's not real. But it's like with anything. It's like, I'm sure, like, I don't know.
Kevin tells your kids that Slimer isn't real.
Sasquatch. I feel like there's aliens, which is like scientifically very difficult to like comprehend that there's no life anywhere else.
Yeah.
Then there's spirituality. There's two versions of it, and I think you kind of have to kind of resign yourself to be very aggressive
Sure.
to be like, there's nothing outside of my five senses that doesn't exist. You're crazy. Like, obviously, that's not what I'm saying. But I just don't believe in like the ghost hunting version of it.
Oh,
where,
sure. With respects to Ryan Bergara, we don't believe ghost hunting. You're actually meeting ghosts.
Well, isn't this the show is him? There's the skepticism is built in to the show. That's why Ghost Files. Is that the new name for it? Is that their current name for it? Ghost Files.
I'm not sure. I'm not a big ghost hunting guy.
It's not BuzzFeed
Unless by Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, with vodka.
Skull
vodka, please. Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, it is Ghost Files. Is there?
Did we just did we just defunct Sasquatch? Is that what we just did?
But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there is. I don't know. I guess I don't know. So whatever.
You're a Sasquatch atheist, is what you're saying?
No. I'm a Sasquatch agnostic, I guess.
Agnostic. There you go. Sasquatch agnostic. You just can't know. You can't possibly.
Lazy man's atheist. Community line. No, I don't know.
Okay, going back to living characters.
Maybe all of this is real, and I'm just an asshole.
No, Sasquatch isn't real. It's okay. You're not an asshole.
Okay.
Maybe it's
But anyways, so the first video is all about these animatronics, and it kind of turned into a video that, like, it's something that I was really interested in figuring out and something I'm really interested in visualizing, but it's going to be interesting to see if anybody else is going to, like, enjoy watching, because I did something last year with Epcot, which was like a symphonic, like, journey, and the idea with that one was, like, you get to see how an idea evolves into something that is made, how something can become one thing, and like the process. This is somewhat similar, and that one was not well received, so I'm worried about this one. But this one is more of like this one. Well,
you can always, I'm telling you, man, you could always do the Disney Plus route with like Werewolf they'd had a black and white version, and then a year later they released a version in color. So you could just you could just release Epcot the symphonic episode with narration. You know what I mean? Just a year later. All right, guys. Yeah. Here it is. Fine.
Right.
But at the same time, there are people who
I will never
love
do that.
Fantasia. There are people who love Fantasia, though. I just want to say, and it's their favorite Disney thing. And there are people who love, The Lion King or whatever. And there's space for both. The power of and. It's okay for both.
I will never go back on it that hard and let.
Sure. You want George Lucas it?
I mean,
McClunky it for me. Give us a McClunky.
What's a McClunky?
You don't know about McClunky?
I don't know.
Like when George Lucas delivered Star Wars to Disney, I think this is how it goes. He'd mess with the films a bunch.
One more time.
The like every single release is different. But like the last time he touched them, when he gave them to Disney, the ones that were eventually uploaded to Disney Plus, he added one last difference, or maybe there was a couple, but there was one main difference, was that in the scene that everyone hated already, the Han shoots first scene, he added Greedo saying McClunky. And like, it's like, is it provably like a troll thing?
I know. Who knows, man? All I know is Greedo now says McClunky, and
okay.
But I would never go back and go back on the premise of that. I stand by that video as
it's so good.
I stand by Journey to Epcot Center, and I always will, while also acknowledging why it didn't work. And it's no surprise to me why it didn't work for everyone. If I would do it again, I would do it much better. The reason I had to just get it out is because I was evolving past it. And a lot of that footage was shot in 2021.
That's so interesting. I literally watched that actually happen around you, because you had this huge idea, then you started working on it, and it just like grew into what it deserved to be. But at the same time, like when you were like in the thick of it, you're like, I'm ready to make the next thing. Like I'm already ready, And so there hits that point where you have to like kill your darlings, right? Like you just gotta be like, all right, let's just wrap this up because this was good, and I need to go make something new now,
Yeah, I think it's somewhat. I think it's also, some of my friends that make narrative features one of them is going through this has gone through this as well, where it's, you don't want to be making something, you don't want to be working on something that a younger version of yourself came up with, like that's the hardest thing to do because you inevitably change and you grow.
Oh, interesting.
Both as a person, emotionally, you get better at your craft. You don't want to have to be working on something that a younger, stupider version of yourself came up with. And so like the goal is to like make the turnaround like 2 to 3 years. But if once it becomes 4 years and 5 years, the person that had that idea is like a totally different person than you are. And also skillfully, just a completely different person. And that's what happened with Journey to Epcot Center was I came up with it in like 2020-ish. Didn't release it until 2023, maybe 2019 I came up with it. It was like 4 years, I think is what I calculated. And it was just like getting to the point where it was like, I'm getting so much better than what this is. Not just in terms of ideas, but just like visually. Like, and a lot of it I'd worked on for years. And so some of it looked great. Some of it is like, I mean, it's not like I'm like, this is perfect. Enjoy it or don't. It was like, there's parts of that film where I'm like, man, if I could shoot that again today, I'd do it so much better. Which is true for most movies, but it's specifically true for something that's so visual effects heavy and so music heavy, where it's like, if I were to do the music again, it would be better. If I were to do the film making again, it would be better. And so it was just like, I had to get it out. That's just true for a lot of.
Gotta get your Snyder cut. You know, you just got to go back in, get the studio to fund you to go back in and just remake the movie.
but you know that
and you shoot it in IMAX
that's even
this time.
Worse. That's even.
I know.
The Snyder thing was a different thing. I'm not saying but like because you know he didn't finish it, but it's. But I also have respect for George Lucas doing the special editions because I think it's hilarious. So I just think it's like it's really funny to be able to do that and like destroy from like a cultural like archivist perspective. I think it's like it should be illegal. But from a artist like just loving to see people be crazy, it's hilarious. It's just so funny to like that you can like
to see inside the mind of a man.
If you could to make a movie worse and then destroy the better version of it, like inarguably worse in like a lot of ways, like ways that even the people that love you and will defend you can't defend. And then to just keep doubling down. I mean, it's. I like it from a. I was literally just. I've been watching a bunch of Star Wars video essays, and not the bad ones. The good ones from people that are reasonable. Not the
rage bait ones.
Not the rage bait ones, like the good ones. But but anyway, so Journey to Epcot Center was very much a. The goal of that was the from the very beginning. The idea was it's like a symphonic journey where you like watch the day Walt Disney dies and it ends the day Epcot opens, which is weird because when I showed people, it's like, I want to know what happens next. I'm like, well, then go to the park.
just go to Epcot.
It's open. You know, it's open. And then and people like, you know, like it's like, but it's different now. And I'm like, yeah, of course. But like, it's, can go.
That's the whole point of the damn episode.
But but it's different. It's like, yeah, but you don't want to see. So anyways, but it's specifically watching that idea evolve and seeing the impetus of an idea get not bastardized is like the word that's coming to mind, but like get just thrown out and changed, and like the tone differences specifically with Epcot, and this is something that only my niche brain cares about. It was like showing how much of a park, if you watch Journey to Epcot Center, ideally one of the things that you walk away with is like, this was a park that is credited to the 80s but was a 70s park in pretty much every way. Like, it is a park that when contemporary people and even contemporary Imagineers think about what is Epcot, they immediately go to, it's the 80s. But it's not. It is the 70s. And if you watch the video, everything, all the aesthetics and the earlier versions of the park, the bronze version, the brown versions, these brown tones, these green tones, the music is disco, the music is orchestral. This idea of the synth neon purple Epcot is like something that was never really true, and kind of, if it wasn't even true until like 83, 84. And so that was kind of the goal of like showing, like, watch these people come up with it and see how this thing that is attributed so, I mean, obviously I should have just come on and the narration said this because then people would have got it. But like that was one of the goals.
You could McClunky, dude. You could just re-release it with one line of narration.
or I'll the first 5 minutes will be me trying to authentically add narration to it, and then the next will just be me going,
Yeah.
God, that was so much. I spent so much time on this.
Just come on,
why did I-
Carousel
Just giving
Progress
up.
style. Just be like, Walt loved family.
Yeah. Walt, it's like Walt was crazy. No, but I will always love Journey to Epcot Center as just a broken, weird child of mine. We've
all got him.
Just, oh yeah,
Some literally.
Yeah.
your kids are gonna watch this episode and be like, oh,
Then they're going to look at each other and be like, which one is it?
Which one is it?
Is it you? It might be both of us.
Let's keep listening.
What if it's Dad?
Maybe he'll say.
Apparently, my kids have called me out recently because I address myself in the third person when I talk to them about plans.
That's just that's the first of so many call outs that you're gonna have in your life.
Oh, my kids are going to be ruthless. It's going to be great. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what two little
destroy you.
maniacs I've raised.
It's gonna change you forever. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so Animatronics
Living characters
is similar in that I'm worried it's only going to be interesting to me, but it's basically
I disagree.
It just
really
tells
cool,
you
man.
how they work.
Yeah.
Like to a point that it's going to hurt your brain, I think. And I'm interested to see how that, like, it's because it's not just saying like they worked by audio tones. It's like specifically explaining the mechanisms and the solenoids and being like, no, this is how it worked by, and like showing you, visualizing how audio works, telling you how sound works, taking you through the whole thing and being like, at the very end, being like, and all this was just a bunch of crap because a computer can do this. And so like that's not really the end, but like it's kind of, the first video is all about everything they did before the computer, and then the second video is everything they did after the computer, and specifically it picks up 40 years later when the Living Character Initiative starts, because that's when they really start. I mean, there was some electric animatronic, there was some advancements in like how big the animatronics were, but really 40 years later it was like, because that's why they did Living Character Initiative. They came out with it literally as a 40th anniversary celebration of animatronics, and so just this idea of like, okay, well, the computer can do more than just program these figures. That it can have them roam, it can have them think, quote unquote, it can have them respond, it can have them read, it could have them do all these things. And so I split it up for a couple of reasons. One, because I wasn't going to get it done, and also that's probably the only reason. But but the other reason was that it's like two tonally completely different videos, and one of them is like really dark and scary and like this kind of lunatic Walt Disney who's just like demanding these people do something that is literally impossible, and the other one is like about Nemo and about Stitch, and it's just like how do you reconcile this? And I think that they're going to be able to stand on their own. If you watch the full thing, it's going to be better. But I think that there's a very certain crowd that's going to love the animatronics video because it's like, I'm hoping that there's a certain type of person that's like, I want to see a bunch of mechanisms and mechanical gears.
There is.
And like kind of the Five Nights at Freddy's, like this is kind of spooky, but also really interesting. And the second video is much more like Fastpass, where it's like, here's a contemporary Disney making, like, because that's why Fastpass, on top of it being just a good story, it was such a big hit, I feel, is just because it's in everybody's collective recent memory, but it was old enough to be a little bit nostalgic, rather than something from like the 80s where it's like, yeah, my dad told me about that. I'll go see if he wants to comment on the video.
Totally that energy, 1000%.
And also just because it's like Nemo and it's Stitch and it's Mickey, and so.
What do you think was the best living character they did? Now that you now you have them all in your head.
Talking Mickey.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
What do you? Okay, and as you're thinking about this and researching it, are there any cons for the guest with living characters? Because they're gone now. Effectively, it feels like almost all the things that they've. But like a lot of them, like the dinosaur and Muppets Mobile Lab and a lot of like the crazy and Talking Mickey, a lot of them have been kind of like phased out in lieu of Turtle Talk with Crush and talking to Rocket Raccoon, whatever it is. Is there a negative to these living characters that Disney's got to pare them down?
Money. They're so expensive, and there's no real value conversion for a roaming animatronic. It's like the only thing that it can do for your business is break. Like there's nothing that no one is going to Epcot because of Muppet Mobile Lab. Like it's just, they're just not. And so, like, maybe there's like 20 people that have said, I'm only buying this $120 ticket to Epcot in 2014 because I heard them up at Mobile Lab. And then what do? You spend your whole day hoping they do a play test? You're roaming around the park trying to find it?
In theory,
was it on the attraction list?
No,
I don't know.
I don't think it was. I think in theory, like, a lot of this is just R&D. Like, the idea is the money is the patent. When
exactly,
they make that.
and that's part of the video that's why this video is kind of a interesting. Is the second video, which I haven't written yet, but it's different, but it's still connected, which is what's going to be difficult. It's like a different tone to where they can't coexist in one package, and also it'd be 3 hours. But the kind of the thing that it's about the second
Peter
video,
Jackson.
Yeah, well, yeah. The second video is specifically about how much of a sham R&D is, or not a sham.
No, it's I get what you mean.
But just that, like, Disney, though, like, and it's not a Disney thing, but Disney's the only, it's an every company thing of, like, and if you look at, like, something like Tesla or any of these companies now, that it's like speculative technology for stock market purposes are basically the only reason to do anything that the public perceives as cool. And so you have these completely impractical tech demonstrations that these companies are doing at conventions, and also Disney's doing, with no real intended use case. And also, if you think about it for 10 seconds, you're like, there's no way this will ever work on a consistent basis. But the things they say that it could do in the future, and so it's basically how Disney is always constantly flirting with becoming a tech company, and how they're basically, for a long time that was these living characters, but then it was satiated by the fact that they were basically running a streaming service. They are still, but streaming services basically had the speculative technology stock market boost that another technology would have, because it was seen as disruptive, and everyone imagined there would be some sort of market consolidation, and that there would only be 2 streamers at the end of this, and not 15 failed streamers. Everybody thought that it would consolidate to, like, Disney, Netflix, and maybe Disney, Hulu, Netflix, and it's starting to a little bit. But that idea that, like, the infinite growth of subscribers was great for 4 years, but there's also all these other strings they pull and these mechanisms to where, why are, I'm these are not fully completed thoughts because I'm still doing my research, but, like, why are we debuting animatronics on a stage that we've never seen, and they've never been implemented in the parks? And then you think of where are those being? It's like they're being debuted at South by Southwest. They're being debuted.
You're talking about, like, the roller skating Judy Hops, or, like, the
roller
weasel
skating
on the cart.
And maybe those are just one more tweak away from being in Shanghai, but there's other stuff that we know has been put out there that never comes back, and sometimes they're presented to, like, people at D23, and they're very clear where they're like, this is a test, we're just doing this kind of to understand it. But other times they're making these claims, and part of the thing is I'm just keeping a document of, like, every claim they've made, and it's just
Long
like part of the video. I just wanted to be like, just imagine if all of these were true, and, like, all of a sudden you start to see, you just start to see, like, this weird Westworld dystopian park where, like, Mickey's in line with you getting ice cream, and, like, because these are the things that they'll say, but they never say them to guests. They say them at Wall Street, like, internal conventions. So like, if you look at, like, Disney, what they tell fans about, it's all about the characters and about that, and obviously that's kind of their thing. But when they talk about, and this is kind of what the video is about, is like when they talk about these advancements in technology, the pitches, and if we're able to implement this into the parks, who knows how much people would be willing to pay? Because that's all speculative Wall Street is. It's I mean, that's all.
Oh, well, it really is Westworld in a weird way. It's like the monopoly we could have over
it's this, a magic show.
Immersive. Yeah. Right? Yeah, this immersive magic show.
It's more of the real version of it. You could project a value amount, which is the opposite of the point. You want to put forward a speculative technology that is basically science fiction, but not so obviously impossible that people start to speculate on how much your company would be worth should you be able to pull that off. And that's basically how a lot of tech companies have operated. I think Apple may be the main exception.
That makes my head hurt. I just want to say that, like, that stresses me out if that would be my job. I could not.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you don't have a problem with lying, then you're going to do really well in corporate America.
Well, I think on the opposite side, when you have people like Lanny Smoot, like doing the hollow tile and things like that, like inventors just want to invent, and inventors have always invented primarily with some backer who thinks they can make money off of what the inventor is doing. So I think, yeah, I get what you mean, Dan. Like I think the crushing blow would be realizing that you're creating things that end up just being used to help a fourth quarter look better. But at the very end, like it's either that or you don't.
That's definitely what hollow tiles felt like. If I'm being honest, that's definitely what hollow tiles
just
felt
a nice
like.
slow walk on the hollow tile.
But that's not. But the difference is before you would invest in an inventor to then sell the invention.
Correct.
Now that's not the case. The invention will never come out ever. No. You'll never be able to be purchased or be seen.
Well, and it's like an aspect of a larger invention. Sometimes it's not even like, here's the thing you could put on a shelf. It's like, a new, they'll show off this thing that doesn't actually work by itself. You have to implement it with multiple things they've never created. And so you're right. It's all speculative. It's just this idea of what could be and the money that can be made, opposed to having a tangible item. So.
And that's yeah, and I think that's it's just a different type of thing. It's like the opposite of what the first video is, which is about them, like, I don't care what the technology is, I don't care if it's not possible, literally make this effect work. And because that's what Walt Disney could do, and Walt Disney was a very creative person, but had no idea how to do any of this stuff. Obviously, no, like he doesn't know how to do electrical engineering. No one's claiming that he does, but he just saying like Lincoln needs to be able to do this. We should be able to do this, and then forcing people to basically do it, and just and then they did it like people do when they're under pressure, and also when they're inventing something new, they figured out a way to make it work. It's what I'm trying to say, and I'm still articulating this, I'm still writing this, but in Walt Disney's case, it's like they didn't really make, and Mark Davis is quoted as saying this, like they didn't really make an animatronic with Lincoln. Like they didn't make like a mechanical life. They didn't make a mechanical figure. They made an illusion that did everything that Walt wanted it to do, but like it was incapable of doing the things that you would think that a true automaton would be able to do. It was able to do more than what you could see in the show, but it was this, it's like everything is reverse engineered for the effect versus
it's like a Rube Goldberg machine in a weird way. Like Lincoln is like a very specific, like, all right, we hit the button and everything goes and then it ends and it does the thing.
It's not a Rube Goldberg machine.
It's not a marble going down the body.
It's not dominoes, but it's basically. And and that's what a lot of people back then, the Walt Disney types, the archetype of this, and it's still happening today. That Steve Jobs is another great example of someone that's like, here's how this is what it needs to do, and then someone would figure out how to make it work. Versus this new speculative technology era for these companies, which is it doesn't need to do anything. It needs to look like it could do something in the future. And that's kind of what this weird like reverse speculative technology where it's like make this like hollow tiles I think is a great example, and I'm sure this was not something they're like make hollow tiles because it's not as cynical as like it's literally like, hey, I figured this out, but and I don't know, maybe hollow tiles is a bad example, but assuming hollow tiles, I'll use hollow tiles as an example, but I also don't know anything about how this happens. So this is
what about the room that charges
everything?
Yeah, what about, can we just talk about that for a second?
Well, so there's two different, like with the speculative technology, there's like two different paths. One path is what Nathan was saying, which is with patents, and it is, hey, look at this cool there's videos they have of Disney researchers is like we invented this robot where if you throw a ball at it, it could catch the ball. And that is like a perfect, like cool example of like the opposite of the Walt Disney thing, which is like the purpose of this the actual cool part about this technology is not the effect. The cool part is actually that the elbow joint can do things that no elbow joint could ever do, and therefore we patented the elbow joint. But the way I'm presenting it to you is fun, which is cool. But the actual impressive thing technologically is something so boring that it would make your head like melt. It's just like, actually the cool part about this is that the camera that is in his eye is actually this kind of camera instead of this kind of it's like something so specific and technical, but the way I'm presenting it to the audience is like, hey, it can catch a ball, which is like the but it's like there's like 1,000 ways a robot could catch a ball. The thing that's impressive about this is something that is so not mind-numbingly boring that like you wouldn't even be listening to me if I explained like the exact cool. But it looks cool, and the point of making it was not to make it catch a ball. The point of making it was to patent this. And so like all the research is surrounded around making it catch this ball, yes, but what we're actually patenting is it's not called robot that catches ball. It is like, something like tracking technology for like bifocal robots. And then you're like, okay, so what are you actually patenting? And it's like, it's not a thing to do with like the effect of catching the ball. What it has to do is it's specifically like the way it looks at objects.
Yeah. And that's how R&D like proves their worth. I mean, in many ways, it's like you get to have a job for another year because kind of like academia, like you wrote a thing, you did a patent, you're proving that the money we're investing in what you're doing could be applicable in some way, either for somebody else with our patent being used or by us. But it's this forward momentum that you can show, opposed to doing it like a case by case basis for like, okay, we have a new ride, and sometimes you figure things out for that, but there's a lot of downtime where they're not working on new rides, and that's when they come up with Holotile because they need something to show that they're worth investing in.
And a lot of these, I mean, especially now because a lot of the research is done in Pittsburgh, and some of it's funding students and some of it's funding international research laboratories, but essentially they're, from what I understand and from what people have told me and said in interviews, they're basically given free reign. If you look at what Disney research, the R&D department does, it's not really parks oriented. 90% of what they do is to do with like rendering. Again, something so boring that it would make your mind explode. It's like, we figured out how to do ray tracing with lights and 3D animation software 60 times faster. And it's like, okay, that's so boring. But I mean,
but it saves a ton of money. Like,
but it saves so much money and so worth it. To me, that's interesting because I love 3D animation. I want to know how
love ray tracing.
I love learning how those types of things are done. And but like that's what most of it is. If you look at like 90% of it, it's like we learned how to save half the polygons by doing a totally different mesh of this animated character. And it's like, okay, but like that's not as cool as like a robot being able to catch a ball.
That's really what Pixar was for a while. I felt like Pixar was like, we invented a new way to render fur. We invented a new way to render hair. We invented a new way to render water. It's like,
well,
and you won't believe how real the water looks in this new movie about what about something incredibly benign.
Well, yeah, Pixar is a unique example because it started as basically that. It started as like software and tech demonstrations, and then it grew into a storytelling company, but it like kind of coincided to where, if we're going to do monsters, let's focus on one aspect of the technology that we can improve. We're going to do Nemo. Let's focus on the water. That's one. And so like each movie is getting better. And so it's like the R&D is like very closely related to the programs. Before Toy Story, the Pixar before Toy Story, where it's Steve Jobs, and they're just making 3D animation with I think George Lucas was involved early on.
A little bit.
Where it's like that stuff, that a lot of those were storytelling came second. It was actually just tech demonstrations. And especially if you look at some of their like reels, which are really cool, like to know they were doing that at that time.
Well, and you could buy their actual rendering software until Disney bought it. Like it was, you literally could just go to Pixar's website. I remember seeing it. Like you could just go and they'd be like email for a quote. It was that simple for a long time.
Yeah, RenderMan, I think it was called, and I mean, and it wasn't just that. They had all sorts of products that they were a kind of like a software company, but not really like a public software. But anyways, Disney, the Imagineering though, the research and development. From what I've heard, like I heard somebody, I'm trying to find this because I'm gonna have to write about it in like a month. But it's like there's like the R&D is sent loose because a lot of them are independent. Some of them are students, from what I understand, and a lot of them internally are just working on whatever. But they do have people working on animatronic technology, but completely unrelated to the parks for the most part. and they will showcase. There's like a showcase apparently that they'll do like once a year for Imagineering, and they like people like it's like a select few Imagineers, because the Imagineer that I heard from was like, I really wanted to go to this. I'm trying to remember where this came from. Like, I wanted to go to this, but only a select few of us get to go. They walk through and they see all this technology that has been developed in complete isolation from anything they're trying to accomplish storytelling wise. And they say, oh, we could maybe use that in Marvel for this, or we can maybe use that here. And then they like reverse engineer it, which is a very modern company way of doing things. And I'm sure if you ask a CPA, you'd say, well, that's actually great, because that means this company has their own budget, which means they're motivated to do this and keep their costs low while Imagineering's over here. But in reality, versus what it was back when it was one company and it was much more family, there was no R&D in a different place. It was literally a bunch of guys in a closet that were hiding.
Mechanics. This
like,
guy used to build cars. This guy worked on trains.
Yeah, and it's like, figure it out. And it's like, okay, well, the Lincoln can do maybe one more thing than what you're going to see him do. He can maybe do his like range of motion is slightly more than what we're going to show you. But it's not like, well, hey, Walt, by the way, I invented this thing that, and I don't know what we could use it for, but
right.
I mean, maybe that happened, but it certainly
Museum
wasn't.
of the Weird, Rolly Crump's Museum of the Weird, be like, hey, I came up with this weird ass thing. What should we do with it? Walt's
right.
like, I don't know.
If that did happen, it was creative. It was something to do with story. Like, I came up with this story, or I came up with this design. Not like, hey, I made a robot that can catch a ball. What can we do with this? And they're like, oh, maybe we could do something where a robot catches a ball.
Like, I made a robot that could smoke a pack of cigarettes a day. Well, what should we do?
Wait till I die. Make me a robot.
And that actually did happen, but it was outside of Disney. Like, there's stories of Walt touring Bell Laboratories and like seeing what they're working on and being like, whoa, we could do something with this. But like to have that within a company is so different than like than what Walt was doing at the time. So like, because like Bob Gurr tells a story of like Walt Disney seeing his first laser, and like that's like the funny, like imagine a guy who's like, what? it's like in 1965, and like this guy that's like about to die,
right?
He's like 65 or however old he was, like 64. He like sees his first laser. And like, because it was new, it was like we made it, and so he's like, "What?" Like, just like, yeah. Imagine you see time travel like right before you die,
right?
And then it just blows your mind right before you die. So anyway, but that's kind of what the second. It's trying to grapple with this like this new segmented Wall Street focused way of doing things where. And it also kind of touches a little bit on the My Magic Plus of it, where it's like they want Wall Street to believe they are a tech company, because nothing is lamer on Wall Street than a movie company. Like, people have said that for decades, where it's like, that is not a good investment, because the best you're going to do is these kind of incremental hits, the singles and doubles approach of just like a company that's profitable and staying above float. But like tech companies, those are the ones you want to invest in, because they make money, baby. Boom or bust of like those. If you get in early and you see that this just insane, like, well, who knows? And that's, I mean, we see it. I mean, you've seen it in modern culture with NFTs and crypto and now AI, where it's like, yes, all of these things are real technologies. Yes, all of these things have value as like a new invention apart from what they're becoming. But what they are, at least colloquially and to the general public, is a speculative technology that is completely absent from what the technology itself actually promises. And so especially with Disney, I think and I'm trying to, again, these are all really unformed thoughts because I haven't written this one yet, but it's the second video. It's like, why? Like, why is this better? Like,
Sure.
why is it better if like, well, we can have like, because the first AI character is on the Star Cruiser, and some people loved it, I guess, but like a lot of people just didn't interact with it, because why would you? It's not real.
Right.
It's, and you start, and ironically, because it's Star Wars, and this is the thing I'm getting this thought for the first time. Great, because I've been watching Star Wars and now I'm thinking about this, but like, you have this AI character, and with any new animatronic technology and any new AI, there's like two things you do. And I talk about this in the first video. You either, and I don't talk about this part, but the thing I do is like, if you cannot make a human, you make a bird, because birds are easy. They're smaller, they're mechanical, they're quick, they're sharp. They're moving around like you expect a robot would, so you can achieve it. The thing that they start doing, the things that people also do back then, were you make it look like a robot. So no one says like, hey, this looks like crap. You're like, actually, it's a robot. So like, it's like, it's rather than making an android, which is supposed to look like us, and you can just pick it apart because it will never, and not never, but it really doesn't look like us. It's like, hey, this looks creepy. It's like, no, just make it metal and make it a robot. And so in the case of the Star Wars, the first AI character, and there's Imagineers that are talking about this, where they're like, it's the first AI character, and it's a droid. Ironically, and again, this is my first time I'm thinking about this, Jenny talks about in her Star Cruiser video how she just kind of didn't talk to it because it was boring, and how people start treating it like the people in Star Wars treat droids, where like C-3PO is like trying to talk to Luke about and he's like, shut up. Yeah, like he's like working on R2-D2, and C-3PO's like, hey, da, 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 and he's like, shut up. He's like, doesn't want to talk to him because why would you? You know he's not alive. I just need you to
translate languages, otherwise don't speak to me.
Why would you talk to him? You know he's not a person.
Right. It's just a robot, yeah.
And in the case of theme parks, why would you,
By the way, I think that's affect Anthony Daniels at a deep level. I think that he's aware of that, and it has changed the person. I hear he's a monster. I have to imagine it's solely because he has lived, allegedly, that he lives inside of...
I've heard he's just... He's an actor, a true theater actor, and takes his role.
Truly, yeah. That's a great way to put it, instead of a monster, because every true theater actor is secretly a monster.
True, but allegedly.
Yeah,
true.
Kevin agrees with that. Allegedly.
But this idea of like, why would you interact with something when you know it's fake? It's like, I mean, why would you?
I don't want C-3PO telling me the odds. You know what I mean? You're a soulless...
Just constantly...
It's like ChatGPT checking in with me to be like, hey, there's a 3% chance you're going to die today. All right, thanks, ChatGPT. Shut up.
and even that there's nothing behind the veil. And so, like, it's also similar to, like, sports. Like, there are robots that can shoot a basketball better than any human and can, like, nail it every time. Just like if you, like, Google, like... robot shoots basketballs, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Why aren't we replacing these? Because why would you watch that? It's boring to watch a soulless, emotionless robot shoot a basketball. What's interesting is seeing, like, the best humanity can do. And so it's kind of this, I mean, it's I'm trying to make it not trite because everybody has these stupid AI takes nowadays that I had from the get-go. But I mean,
right, these are my takes first, clearly.
I was scared about this so much that I'm over it. Everybody needs to get over it. That's my take on most things. I've been panicking about this for years. Why is everyone so freaked out now? So that's part of that video is kind of just like, it's the combination, and this is very early on, but it's the combination of like lining up everything they've done and said they want to do and being like, okay, well, even if they could pull this off, even like we know they're just saying this for the stocks, or we know they're just saying this as like for the convention they're at. But imagine if this was real. Would you want to go to this? And it's like your initial response would be yes, because like I want to see it. But like, would this be better than what we have now? If the Jameters were robots that were playing that, would you be more engaged than if they were people? I really don't think so. Once the novelty that they were robots wore off. Which is interesting because I talk about this with in the first video with Lincoln of like, why is this a robot? And I finally yesterday found a quote from a reviewer in 1964, a week after Lincoln debuted, where he asked that. He's like, why isn't this an actor? Because it would be boring. The purpose of it is it's a freak show, is what this guy says. It's like, it's a freak show. That's why you go. And in the case of something like Lincoln, that's true. But I think Lincoln... I know people love that show, and sorry for saying this. I think Lincoln's a good example of like, once you know how that works, it's no longer interesting to see. I mean, I don't know if maybe that show's hit max capacity every day.
I'll be honest, bro. I've never gone in it. I've never done it. I saw it on YouTube, and I was like, great. I've never been in it. I'll be honest. I've never done the Lincoln.
Well, I mean, I think this. I think the difference between something like Lincoln / Hall of Presidents and American Adventure is that American Adventure, I find it still novel because it's completely changing how you utilize a stage and a proscenium. Like it's a thing that will never be done again. Whereas putting a robot on a stage isn't that interesting, right? There's enough dynamic creativity inside of like American Adventure where I think there's a repeatability, at least for me, beyond the story, which is desperate. It's like, hi Elon, hi Mark Zuckerberg at the end. Beyond that.
No, man, they're about to be heroes. I don't know who's
apparently.
They're not taking them out. Are you kidding?
Bless.
Yeah, they're about to put more Elons in.
More Elons. Hall of Elons.
That's you better watch your mouth. You don't want to put that on tape.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there is no novelty in like a Hall of Presidents in the set. Like,
well, I know what you mean. I talk about this in this video for a bit of. There's a large section of the video after I explain how it works is the ethics of it. And that's what I think is different than when I did the 64 fair before, where it's like specifically like everybody says the common line from people, if you watch like Behind the Attraction or any of the modern Disney stuff, is people thought this was going to be ridiculous, but Disney nailed it. And then everybody loved it. And would you believe that that's not true? And so anyway, so I talk about that. But specifically, that Lincoln was the most weird use of the technology at the fair, because it's kind of a reversal, because to the people within the organization, it was insane to question them and say, why isn't this a real actor? Because their response was like, well, because we just made a robot for the past 5 years and spent like $1 million trying to build, like, what? Yeah, let's just throw that away and make it an actor. But like from the public's perspective, who are hearing about this for the first time, they're like, wait, why isn't this an actor? And by the time the fair debuts, you have all of these other animatronic attractions that are only possible because of the Lincoln on a stage attraction that are much more unique, creative, and like doing things that are impossible for an actor to do. Like John Progress, it's impossible for an actor to teleport 4 times into 4 different scenes to achieve that effect. Doing scenes that are that short, 3 minutes at a time, are repetitive. But with Lincoln, 5-minute show, 5 to 10 minute break in between shows with the curtains closed, 5 performances per hour, you could accomplish that with an actor easily, and it's not ridiculous. It's ridiculous to say that an actor could be the auctioneer on Pirates of the Caribbean and stand there for however long and just do that same. That's ridiculous, obviously. It's not ridiculous to suggest that for a 5-minute Lincoln show with a curtain up and curtain down. And so it's just, it became this weird thing. It's like, so part of what I do is, with anything, is I try to be empathetic to everyone, because I truly believe there's very few people in this world that believe they're evil and are doing evil things on purpose. And I think calling Lincoln at all evil is extreme to begin with. But even just bad intentions, I don't think it's 100%. I hate actors, I have to replace them. Right. I also don't think it's 0% that, for the record. I think it's part of it. And so it's like this weird mix, but specifically of like, I get it from their perspective. They made Lincoln, the whole point of this technology was to see if they could do Lincoln. And so by the end, of course, we're not going to replace it with an actor, but I also think it's such a weird use of the technology. It's such a
I mean, it's like a test demo brought to you by the state of Illinois. Like someone was willing to pay to do it. So,
and to the point of American Adventure, Hall of Presidents, you could argue a little bit more with Hall of Presidents, like at least, like, why would you hire 40 actors to like do that?
Yeah,
stand there and say nothing, like
nod.
Yeah, it's like, well, why aren't the Stormtroopers and Rise of the Resistance all actors? It's like, why would they be?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
who's pining for that job? But but it's all contextual. And in American Adventure, same thing. It's like, not only are those animatronics, but they're doing things that humans could not
It would be dangerous.
It would be dangerous for them to like just be shot up into
shoot
the air.
A horse, shoot a horse up into the.
Yeah, just you're on a horse and then you get launched into the. And so and also just any ride. So it's a little bit about the ethics of like the actor's ethics, and also about the ethics of like resurrecting a real person, which is even worse in my opinion. Like, that's crazy.
It is a little crazy, and now we're about to do it with Walt.
And so that's obviously where the second part goes, and kind of talking about just that aspect of it, and how odd the whole thing is. Because it's, people have asked me, what do you think about Walt? Don't you think that's crazy? I said and my response is like, it's no crazier than Lincoln. It's just normalized, and so will Walt. But it's insane, in my opinion, to resurrect a dead person like that. Like, it's, I don't know if it's like unforgivable, unethical. Like, I don't know if I can make that stance, like, because it's like, but it's wild. It's such a it's such a odd thing to do. I'm just gonna make a person, like a real one, like that existed. And Walt's defense was, well, I'm gonna make him really realistic.
You don't get it.
And it's like, guys, don't worry. It's gonna be so real, you're not gonna be able to tell the difference.
I mean, does this have something to do with, like, I just kind of did the math really quickly, and like when Great Moments opened, Abe had been dead for like almost 100 years. It's like 99 years. And I feel like there's an expanse there of like generational time. Like, Bob Gurr knew Walt. He's still here, right? And I think there's it gets to that point too where I think the same thing could be said about Hall of Presidents when we started like allowing the new president to speak and like give a speech with Clinton. And all of a sudden there was these weird dynamics about, okay, is it okay to present ethically a person who recorded this for us, and like is a part, like they've had a say in what we're doing, opposed to someone who is so long dead that we like put Abe on t-shirts and pennies and whatever. Like, he's like a,
hey, he hunts vampires now.
Yeah,
Nobody
he's
got
he's just like a concept. Like, he's
Remember
far
that
more.
movie?
Yeah, he's more of a concept than a thing. But like, it is weird. It is weird to do that in a span of time where someone is gone, but not necessarily like forgotten, or like it's not.
I don't think you can draw any lines.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think any line you draw is so arbitrary that it's like you either have to like condemn this entire practice, or you have to allow everything, because JFK was in Hall of Presidents 8 years after he was shot.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And he's just animated. There he is. He looks exactly like him.
No bullet hole.
Yeah.
Daniel.
What?
It's true.
Well, when they make robot Jesuses, they don't leave the hands in the holes in the hands either.
Well, he's
you know
resurrected.
what I mean? Like,
so
yeah. When he came back, they checked his hands and they had holes.
Has there ever been?
That's how they believed.
I need to
That's
know.
how they believed that he.
Is that consistent through all 4 chapters?
That I don't know. This is the
Are
Luke.
you asking me for Bible continuity right now?
This is the Luke.
Yeah, he did. It was only the Gospel of John, I think, that said that. Yeah, it says John says that he still had the nail holes in his hands after the resurrection. Which is odd.
True story. All those books are actually different metaverses. Different things.
The Jesus from the cruise line is not connected.
What about the Jesus from the Haunted Mansion? That's my favorite Jesus.
No, Dan, you make a point I want to know. Has there ever been a robot Christ? Have we made robot Christs before?
I think Mormons have made a robot Christ in Utah, and like they're in like there's like a tourist robot Jesus, I think.
Okay.
I'm just saying yes because there's no way that isn't the case.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, wax figures for sure. I buy lots.
There's
of
definitely
things.
been a robot Jesus. The Pope just announced like a kawaii, like little like anime character. So I mean, if we've gotten that far, we've definitely crossed.
Robo Christ.
Yeah.
The blue flame has come out of the Vatican. The Robo Christ has been created.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there hasn't been like a really good one, but I'm sure there has been like a
like a Home Depot Christ
coming to Lowe's next season. Yeah.
Well,
next
Christmas. Don't worry. It's super realistic.
Yeah,
it's
the holes in the hands bleed.
Everyone's so upset that Walt's doing this, and he's like, "Well, don't worry, it's gonna be so real that you won't be able to tell the difference." It's like, but it's weird because like in both cases, like they had Lincoln's great grandson watch it, and he's like crying during it. He watched it like 3 times in a row, and it's like.
I never met this man.
I know. I'm like, I don't want to be a jerk, but it's like you don't even know this guy, bro. Like you don't even. Yeah. It's like me like watching.
Patriotism was different though back then, man. I think patriotism was different.
I mean, maybe you were crying just because your lineage, but it certainly wasn't. The way they paint it is like it was so touching to the great grandson that he got to see his great grandfather alive again. It's like, no, it's more just like I'm assuming the crying was either because wow, this was such an important moment in American history, or this was or that like obviously it wasn't one moment, it was like 6, but like,
or maybe he got a good paycheck from Disney that we didn't know about.
Or maybe all along.
And then again, this is spoiling the other video. I'm watching the D23 stream, and Josh tomorrow is like, well, we're making Walt, and guess who we got? I thought that was Jim Beam whiskey. I was like, what are you doing? just
a gigantic thing of iced tea. Just took a little sip. Because my cup's still full of water.
Anyways.
You're saying your cup runneth over.
They're like, so like Jack on our podcast, where we parked, made a joke. This was like in, I think, the Patreon. It was like one of the ones we did as a test for the podcast. He was like, he said, and it's so funny to listen back to, he said, keep bringing out the Roys. How many Roys we got? Bring them out. And then, amazingly, like 2 years after he said that, I'm watching the D23 stream, and they're like, and you know who we let see the animatronic? Roy P. Disney.
Yeah.
And then it's like, this guy stands up, starts waving, and I'm like, oh, wait, there's another Roy Disney. And it's like, it's not Roy O. Disney, and it's not Roy E. Disney. This is Roy P. Disney.
And it's Roy's running all the way down. Roy's all
to be fair, I do think Roy P. meant Walt, but I mean.
But to Nathan's earlier point, it's like Bob Gurr. It's like the people are still like, it's not like the Titanic sank, like like everyone's dead now and haha, let's make a movie with boobs, This is like a little bit. It's like what are you grimacing for? I know people can't see you just grimace, but that's what it is. It's a movie with boobs, man. That's what.
Yeah, it's a sexy romance movie.
Yeah.
You
were 12.
I was when the movie came out.
Yeah, it mattered. It mattered. We cared about that car scene.
It was, yeah.
Anyways, Titanic. Yeah, it's weird because they're like, well, we're gonna treat it with gravity, as if that's okay. It's like, well, not just Titanic, but just like specifically the way they do these animatronics, and it's like, okay. That like I guess that's better than you like making him like do like a beatbox. I wasn't expecting him.
Yeah, we have anime Walt Disney. We have a 3D animation of Walt Disney or whatever. Yeah.
Well, the people in, because the easiest thing to do was this. Actually, they did it again with Star Wars. When Disney bought Star Wars, where it's like when Lincoln was coming out, it's like, oh, what are they gonna have Lincoln do? Whistle the Mickey Mouse theme? And just because it's like the easiest thing to do if you're like some hack newspaper writer in Illinois or just wherever, just being like, what's next? Are they gonna have him sing "When You Wish Upon a Star"? And it's like, wow, what a genius editorial you just wrote. Congratulations on being the most, basic writer of all time. But they did the same thing with Star Wars, where it was like, well, are they going to put Cinderella in Star Wars? And then, people were like, before the movies came out, that you would hear that take of like, are they going to make him princess movies? And are they going to make Princess Leia one of the princesses? And it's just like, it's just the most, because some people's mind of what like Disney is, they have no connection to it because they're like 100% into like football or hockey or something. And so the only thing Disney is in their brain is like
is a princess.
Is for children, and it's for like it's castles and it's for girls, and in these like very like, you know, masculine Bill Maher types.
Things. Yeah.
Have you seen that clip of Bill Maher pretending like he doesn't know what Toy Story is?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's like the perfect encapsulation of this type of person. Right down to the hack comedy. Where
was this in his lounge? Was this in the?
It was in the dungeon, the club random scary dungeon.
Good.
And it was with Quentin Tarantino. And Quentin Tarantino, whatever you think of Quentin Tarantino, and there's many things to think, he is not a pretentious film watcher, and he's very supportive of other people's work. And as evident, he sits there and starts praising Toy Story and the trilogy. He's like, I don't want to see Toy Story 4 because Toy Story 3 is the perfect trilogy. I think they did such a good job with those movies. And like, again, Quentin Tarantino, plenty of things you could say about him. But as far as like, I just love seeing like modern directors who are looked on and seen very like kindly, like just acknowledge good stuff. Like Guillermo del Toro does it. Even like Christopher Nolan like loves Fast and Furious. Like I just love seeing, it's very humanizing to be like, you can respect other people's work even though you would never make this. Like, because Quentin Tarantino would never make Toy Story, but he likes it. There's something endearing about that, and something like, maybe this is too far, but like demasculating about, not demasculating, but just like unpretentious, like taking away the ego and not trying to be like a tough, cool, like, you know, just admitting that like, yeah, it's a movie just made for kids, being very
grounded and authentic.
Yeah, that you love it. Then Bill Maher says, Toy Story, is that like a cartoon? And it's like, you jerk, you know what Toy Story is. You can't, it's the craziest clip. He's like, I've never seen that. Is that like a cartoon?
He literally worked for the ABC company.
There's no way Disney's he doesn't know.
Merger.
How would you live and not know that Toy Story is a cartoon?
How could you see Jingle All the Way and not know about Buzz Lightyear? Yeah. Wow.
Anyways, but I don't know why I started talking about Bill Maher. Oh, it's just these hack comedy, these hack.
But I can't stop.
It's interesting because with Lincoln, I've been reading, and I don't get to talk. These are things that just aren't going to make it in because it's like so long already and it'd be boring. But just like Lincoln was like perfect fodder for like 60s editorial humor, as was all the animatronics. And some people, and it's interesting to read like the hacky ones. I posted one to my Blue Sky, of like a guy that's talking about how he wants to like have sex with the animatronics. He wants to have sex with like animatronic girls at the fair, and it's comedy, most of it. You would hope, and also it's still not. It's like you at best it's bitter, biting irony about how like men are awful, but it's probably just 60s like really crappy humor that's like really like weird and just it's creepy. It's even, you can acknowledge that he's trying to be funny and it's still creepy. And then there's other humor where it's a very like low bar of like I was talking about, where it's like Disney's making Lincoln. Is he gonna have a long nose like Pinocchio? It's like wow, he's a genius. Here's your Pulitzer. But then there's like comedy that I've seen that is the funniest editorial. I'll find it. It's the funniest thing, and it's like it's a guy in the 1960s being hilarious and like legitimately taking down the idea of an animatronic, but in the funniest possible way. I'm pulling it up right now. Let me find. So at the curtains part slowly, and there, seated on a great throne-like chair, is the figure of a man who looks exactly like, but how can it be, the one and only Abraham Lincoln. The austere black suit and gold watch chain props sedately on a red-carpeted marble platform, flanked by 2 flags and Grecian vases laden with plastic greenery. At that moment, one recalled Disney's quoted credo behind audio animatronics. Dignity would have to be the constantly sounded keynote. And then he says, the lips open and the pre-recorded... Okay, the dignity, that constantly sounded keynote, of course, went by the boards when the minute the figure stood up, blinked those deep-set glass eyes, rotated the maned plasticine head from left to right, and opened the hands in a mechanical supplication. The lips opened, and the pre-recorded voice of Lincoln impersonator Royal Dano filled the theater, and that's when one discovered what audio animatronics really was. What it is, it's a thing. It's a thing that looks and acts precisely as Abraham Lincoln would have looked and acted if he'd only been a robot. After which is the fun. Like, I wish I would have written that.
What a great take! Yeah, what a great. It does sound like a Defunctland take, doesn't it?
I know, isn't that perfect? After a very few great moments of Mr. Lincoln, one would begin to understand why the person outside the theater cried. For it's not as easy thing to take, someone making a dummy out of our 16th president. And then later on, he says, a tiki god, however, is one thing, and Abraham Lincoln is another, and the dignity that is Disney is dramatized during the grand finale. The robot finishes its statement, it sits. A chorus comes on strong with Battle Hymn of the Republic. The crimson curtains behind the mechanical man part to reveal a starry night and gradually lightens into a pink and white striped pattern that looks like, by golly, it is the American flag. Of course, anyone who fails to applaud at this point should be sent directly to FBI headquarters for investigation.
Do people still applaud?
What?
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if people still applaud.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's such a, especially because the soundtrack, and I think the new version's the same. The soundtrack is so epic, and it's also, I really should talk about this a little bit. When Lincoln stands up in the show, it musically sounds like someone coming to life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, oh, and it's like there's a bit of like dissonance where I can't sing for crap, but like there's a bit of like,
wait, do it like Kermit the Frog. If Kermit the Frog were to do, there we go. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I know.
See, we found a use for the Muppets after all. Finally.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Imagineering. You can throw them away now. But so like this, it's like this scary, like it's initially it's very patriotic, like it's like this really creepy like chord, as if it's, and then he stands up and it's like, oh my gosh. Anyways, last thing, I got to read this. Thus on lonely evenings, okay. A germ of truth here. The new art of audio animatronics might not replace living persons, but it could surely ease our pains at the loss of loved ones. Perhaps at this very moment, Mr. Disney's contemplating a talking, standing, sitting, and gesturing figure of late President Roosevelt or Kennedy. By refining the facial characteristics, even adding a nervous tie here and there, he could keep memories warm for years. And why stop with the greats, friends, relatives, associates? They all could be enshrined in plasticine. Thus, on lonely evenings, when one is in need of comfort and companionship, one might remove his mother's figure from the closet and again be entranced by those dulcet exhortations, eat, eat. Or the audio animatronic father, gray of hair and chewing a plastic cigar butt, could be plugged in and again relive those wonderful moments when you looked at your first job. My son, the college graduate. Ah, it's wonderful being able to sit around the house, reading, living off the fat of the land, only 21 years old and retired, living the life of leisure. And this is my favorite. Of course, as Disney put it so well, imagination would have to be tempered with authenticity. Fantasy would be entirely abandoned since his president would defeat our purpose. This might be illustrated by great moments with the Dugan's bread man. In his left hand, a loaf of that splendid whole wheat bread. In his right, the overdue bill. He would be programmed so that his philosophy of life would ring through the chambers of eternity like, quote, like I don't want to bug you, Mr. McGee, but we're up to the three-digit mark again. And then he ends it saying, of course, needless to say, dignity would have to be the constantly sounded keynote. And that was written by Mike McGrady.
God, what a teardown.
It was such great. And then I looked up Mike McGrady, and this guy, I hope he's not like a secret asshole, because like everything so I looked him up, and I didn't know about this, but he wrote a 1969 book, a literary hoax called Naked Came the Stranger. Have you heard of this?
No,
you haven't heard of the 1969 novel Naked Came the Stranger? It's
a literary hoax. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a fake book that he wrote to be bad on purpose and told all of his friends and like got other journalists to write it. He said, this is from the Wikipedia, McGrady's intention was to write a book that was both deliberately terrible and contain a lot of descriptions of sex to illustrate the point that popular American literary culture had become mindlessly vulgar. The book fulfilled the author's expectations and became a bestseller in 1969. They revealed the hoax later that year, further spurring the book's popularity.
Didn't the movie become isn't it? I just looked it up. It's a movie, right? Yeah.
It is also a movie.
So he's the real producers. Where did we go right? Yeah.
Yes.
Seriously.
Except for he's and that's so.
Wow, this guy's awesome.
Anyway, so that guy's awesome. But so as much as I had to crap on these crap editorials that just are so lazy, the good ones on the animatronics are hilarious. The great moments with the Dugan's bread man is the funniest thing.
He bills up to 3 digits again.
The bill's up to, and he has a loaf of bread in one hand and the bill in the other. Am I saying Dugan's right? Is that how you pronounce Dugan's?
It doesn't matter. I think it's fine.
Oh, okay, great.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
if you get it wrong, the Dugan's heads are going to come after you. So you got
Yeah. The Dugan stance.
Great moments with the Dugan's bread, man.
Thanks for giving us a peek into your next video, Kev. I loved it. I love this is like my life, honestly. I chat with Kev on the phone and we talk about the videos we're making. And this was great. This is I'm always so tickled by the deep dives you go down, and especially all the stuff that you just won't put in the video that we still get to talk about. And so I'm glad we got to have a couple of those moments where you're just like, I'm never going to talk about this, but let's talk about it. So at the end of every episode, we like to check in on some of the fun stuff we're doing. And while you guys listen to this, I am at IAPA meeting all the theme park fans and creators and merchandisers, mostly the merchandisers. I'm meeting all the merchandisers. Man, I love IAPA. Nathan, you've been, right?
3 times. 3 times?
Wow.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's a good time, isn't it?
I think it's always more fun to go with people. I've been with people and I've been by myself, and there's just so much stuff. What I like to, when people ask about what IAPA is, I'm always like, it's a convention center, but you took everything from like Planet Coaster, like all the inventory, and you just threw it in a room. And you were like, do you want a hot dog roller? Yes. Do you want a baby changing
bounce
table?
House?
Yes. Do you want a pinball table? Yeah, that's the best part. You get to try all the pinball tables. But
you get to try everything. All the arcades are like unlocked and free, and
you could
bounce houses.
And you could buy a $40 million roller coaster if you want. Put in your backyard. They're right there for you.
I try Zapparella. What's that? Is that the name? Like Zapparella. They had a line open to test one of their rides, and so I jumped in the line. And there were a bunch of dudes there, you know, and I was like, so how much does this cost? You know?
What do I got to do to put you in this baby right here?
And I'm like, and they're just like, oh, we don't discuss that. And I'm just like, well, what's the point of this thing then? How do you know? How do you know I don't want one of these things, baby? I guess they knew. I wasn't wearing a tie or anything, but like they knew. They must have known. Nathan, what are you up to for fun?
Currently I am reading I think it's the penultimate. I think it's the second to last of the Fletch series of books by Gregory McDonald. For those who are familiar with Fletch from the Chevy Chase movies or maybe the John Hamm movie, the series is based on a series of books that started with Fletch, and then Gregory McDonald wrote a bunch of them, but sort of chronologically out of order. And so I've been reading them in sort of the actual narrative order, and it's been very fun. They're all very, very quippy. They're quick reads. They're like classic airport kind of very small chapters, lots of dialogue, a lot of fun puns and stuff. So I recommend those. I have had a blast reading each of them. And sometimes the mystery is really good, and sometimes the mystery is like whatever. But in the end, you get to hang out with Fletch, and it's fun. And so Gregory McDonald's Fletch series. Check them out.
Fletch.
Yeah, man.
I never learned to read, so I guess I won't be able to.
They got audiobooks, I'm sure. For
great.
You. Don't worry.
I learned to listen.
Yeah.
Hey, Kev, what are you up to for fun these days? Struggling to survive as I edit my next episode.
I'm dying.
This is also how we talk on the phone too. It's like,
Yeah,
how are you?
Dan,
I'm another day closer to death.
Another day closer to 1 day closer. I'm Kevin.
He's on his, for those because you can't see, he's on his fainting couch right now. He's
just
the 1 day closer every day. So I listen to music and I watch YouTube. Right now my favorite bands of the year is Pulp, Brit rock band from the 90s, still making stuff. They're very good. I like them a lot.
Pulp, you said, like the orange juice?
Like the orange juice, yes. It's
Cool.
you've heard Common People for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's their most famous track. You maybe heard William Shatner's spoken word version of it, which is terrible.
That's one way.
Yeah, that's,
I want to be.
We got to bring that
Common
back.
People?
We got to bring
I wanna
spoken
be
word
the Common
audios.
People. But they have a lot of all their contemporary, their later albums are great, so they'll love those. And also, I'm watching YouTube, and I'm going to give a shout out to my favorite current Star Wars video essayist, and I'm doing this with all of the fear in the world that this person is something that I do not know. I hope that they are.
The next video
not.
is pure misogyny.
Yeah, it's called how women ruined everything.
Yeah.
No, I think that's not the case. It's called Empire Wreckers, and they make some great stuff. They do videos that I would do if I was making Star Wars content, and I love Star Wars. I'm kind of going through a Star Wars phase again, partly just because I love the because I'm doing animatronic stuff, and a lot of it, the stuff that was going on at ILM is similar, but also just because I'm always interested in it. They have some great. One of my favorites is How Bad Movies Are Made, featuring The Rise of Skywalker. That's a 2 million view. You probably have seen this one around, and it kind of like sounds like it's going to be like, this movie sucks and here's why, but it's legitimately just like the most level-headed, here's how a movie can end up being bad. And it's not about someone being inept or somebody being something being stupid. It's legitimately just like, here's how Rise of Skywalker specifically was made, and like the dominoes that created this movie that inarguably is imperfect and that most people like,
and something you can only gather in hindsight, really.
Yeah, and something that like, but it's really cool. And so that video was really good. And also the VFX crash course on Attack of the Clones is amazing. And just because I love VFX, and so it legitimately just goes through like, it's called Why Does Attack of the Clones Look Like a Video Game? Again, it's like this title of like, you think they're going to be crapping on it the whole time, but it's legitimately just like, it literally looks like a video game because it is in many ways a video game. And so
that's so true.
Talking about the lack of ambient occlusion and stuff like that, and then they also have one about how the Force works that is like, I've always wanted to make this, and I'm glad somebody did, because I probably would have never gotten around to it, of just like, here's every mention of the Force put down chronologically in our world, because other people do this where they'll talk about how Star Wars like lore works, and not to say anybody's work is not good, but I don't prefer it when it's based off of the timeline of the Star Wars universe. Because I inevitably get like, whatever, because it's just, I'm not a big extended EU person. But this video is great because it's like, here's what the Force was in the first draft of the script. The second draft, here's what it was in A New Hope. Here's what it was in the first draft of Empire. And it's literally in our universe how the Force has evolved throughout like the video games and the production, and like how.
Oh, I'm into that.
Yeah, it's really cool because it just shows you like, and he goes into like the spirituality that Lucas was like surrounded by when in San Francisco at the time. So highly recommend those videos. They're just very
Empire Wreckers.
Empire Wreckers, like Wreckers as in Wreck-It Ralph, not as in records, as in like,
as in the Jack Black.
Is it a joke film?
Record.
Is it a joke about Empire Records?
Yeah, it's got to be. It's such a great movie.
You're thinking of High Fidelity, by the way, Dan, when it comes to the Jack Black movie.
Jack Black's not in Empire Records?
No, he's in High Fidelity. Both record movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll believe you.
Thank you.
I'll believe you for now.
And more than that, I'll forget that you talked about this at all. More than I believe you, I'll forget this entirely.
Well, this has been fun. No, but seriously, thanks for coming, Kev. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
I can't wait for your new episode on animatronics. And you've got a podcast too.
Yes,
it's like this underground Patreon thing, but you release it publicly. After
I do release it publicly. It's called Where We Parked. It's a late night podcast with me and my friend Jack, and sometimes Rob, and sometimes Dan, and I guess whoever else is at my house at 11 p.m. on Saturday nights. But it's a podcast where we go into like deep dives into theme parks. Dan and we just recorded an episode that I hope we've
That
got all
one-
the audio for.
That one, dude,
But-
the rabbit hole we went down on that is probably one of the most fascinating things I've learned about theme parks this year. I was entranced.
Not out yet. Not even on the Patreon yet. But
yeah, I was entranced by the conversation that we had. A couple misfires. Dan infamously over here once really missed a lot of social cues around surrounding zebra cakes, and wasted
whenever
significant...
Dan the podcast is very low key and it's very conversational, but you put a microphone near Dan, and so like and when we recorded it, I was like reading something from my phone, and it was like every 3 words it would be I'd be like so like in May of 1968, and you're like in May like the spring, and I'm like, and I was like, can you shut up? But I love you, and you're my best friend, so it's okay.
I love you too, buddy. Oh my goodness. So check out Kevin's amazing podcast,
Where We Parked. It's called Where We Parked. You can find it on defunctland.com. It's on the homepage, or you can go to whereweparked.simplecast.com. Why would you do that? Just go to defunctland.com. It's on the homepage.
And you can find Jack and I's podcast, We Parked Right Here, on defunctland.org.
Yeah. I'm suing for copyright infringement.
Oh, amazing. Well, thanks for listening, guys. It's over now. The podcast is over.
This has been a production of 710 Media.